Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 27 from Behind Our Science, where today we're going to talk about all about science education and science outreach. And although it doesn't necessarily have to do with research, it's something that's really important to many researchers, including my co-host, Dr. Daisy Shu, and myself. Daisy, I would love to hear about some of your most memorable science outreach experiences. Could you share some with us?
Thanks, Vic. Yeah, I'd love to share some of the science outreach that I participated in. Amazingly, last year I had this great opportunity at my new institute, the University of New South Wales, to be part of the UNSW STEM Champions program, which is a fantastic program. It's been running for years, and I was part of the early career researcher cohort. They also have a higher research degree cohort, which is like master's students, PhD students. So the program is fantastic because it supports women and non-binary researchers. So specifically targeting the minority groups and giving us the platform to grow our career development skills. So there were all these workshops throughout the year. So what did we do? We did so much. We went through how to present in terms of presentation skills. We actually learnt that from a stage actor. So that was really cool. And then we also got other talks on how to get promoted, which we got a lot of discussions on that because that's a topic that we don't really hear about a lot. We sort of just get up to a point where like we probably should, apply for promotion. And so it was nice to hear that at the very beginning. And yeah, heaps of other things. We also got paired with the career coach. So we got one-on-one coaching. So that was really awesome. And in addition to all of this in the background, that was setting us up to do outreach activities. So we had to complete 20 hours of outreach throughout the year. And that included high school visits, primary school visits, which I think you guys call elementary school. And yeah, it was just so fantastic because we got to share our science with people who were the next generation, inspiring them. And that was our whole mission, is to inspire the younger generation. So kind of like 10 years old and like 10 to 18-year-olds. A really cool thing that I got to be part of in this program was called the Future You program. And that has been set up to support specifically, I think, 8 to 12-year-old students in school. And it actually cartoonizes your face. So creates your persona. So they created a cartoon of me, which was so like weird seeing, but it was really, really, really awesome because someone's gonna like color in my face, I guess. And basically yeah, like there was a find word about all these eye research things. So it was about me as an optometrist and eye researcher. And that's a career pathway that they may not have known about. And so now they're finding words like retina and mitochondria and like optometrist, all these words. And it's so crazy and surreal for me to be, a find a word and cartoon for them as an activity. So that was really fun. And the program's recruiting again this year. And I'm really excited for the next lot of researchers in it.
That's amazing. That sounds like really fun and something that's really impactful, not just for undergrads or K through 12, but also you as a PI of a lab. Like it sounds like it was really memorable. So that's really exciting. One of the science, I guess, outreach, if we could call it that, things that I really liked doing was called being a mass mentor or more mentor in Spanish for the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science, which is SACNAS. I was paired with this last year an undergrad and the year before one postbac and one grad student. And I mentored them through their career. For sometimes it's through graduate school application processes. Sometimes it's just having difficult conversations with your PI. It's basically to dismantle the unwritten curriculum that is put upon us whenever we're first gen or we don't have other family members or friends that are in this field. And it allows us to serve as like an ally to these young scientists in this really tough trajectory of science research career, right? And then one of the things that I did, I've been a part of SOCNAS for a really long time, but I really like doing science demos with kids, like you mentioned, primary school or K through 12. I love making kids excited about science. And we went to Christamore House, which is a community center that had a reduced cost after school care in the Hawville neighborhood of Indianapolis, which is the neighborhood I lived in. And we were able to like make slime and then teach them about velocity. It was really cool and really fun. And I'm hoping that that sparked an interest to get into science. But like I mentioned, it can often be hostile to minoritized groups. So hopefully programs like your STEM Champions program can be translated over here for those future generations.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope so because I think we're changing the shape of and like that understanding of what a scientist looks like.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people actually on social media have done that too, and they've done that really well
Yeah.
in terms of like changing that stereotype and making other kids who don't fit that part to, actually feel like I could be a scientist in the future as well. I don't have to look like a standard wacky, lab scientist with crazy hair and stuff
White
and
hair,
male,
white lab
white male,
coat.
yeah,
Yes.
super old as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, like a scientist, well, at its core, a scientist is someone who does a practice of science, which
Mhm.
is in itself like the study of asking questions in the scientific method,
Mhm.
testing hypotheses. And I think like if you boil it down to that, like everyone is kind of a scientist in a
Sure,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. And then so it's kind of just perpetuating that notion of anyone could be a scientist
Mhm.
practicing this method. And also, if you want to make a career out of it, there's so much diversity of topics.
Yeah.
And the slime thing sounds so fun. I actually have never made slime, so I'd like to
Oh
do
my
that.
gosh, it's so easy to make. I'll send you the protocol. There's a
I
recipe.
love the protocol. I might do that in the lab.
Why not? I feel
Making
like that would be
slime.
a fun team building, a bonding experience. So you can talk about the polymerization in
Yes.
slime.
That would be making slime together. It brings everyone together.
Right. So why outside of the importance that you just talked about for science outreach, do you think there's a role for it to play in our community or our overall society? Since you mentioned that most people are scientists, right? Like farmers are scientists, gardeners. I mean, we are all citizen scientists, right? So how
Yeah.
could science outreach impact these societies that maybe don't consider themselves scientists?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that the concept of science is actually such a broad concept, as I was mentioning earlier. So whether we like it or not, we're actually kind of practicing it day to day. I mean, we might not have all the rigorous controls, but like recognizing that is a good point too, and saying, look, there might be bias now because we don't have the proper controls in place. And that's nice to talk about because that can skew the results if you don't have these controls. And sometimes it's impossible to have the perfect control. When you get medication from a doctor, is there a placebo effect in place there? So these are things that you can take into your daily lives. And just asking questions, I think that is so crucial and like to the core of what science is asking a question and creating a methodology to answer that question in a rigorous way. So I think like, a farmer could apply this. You can even be a scientist to your own, you can kind of perform your own mini experiments on yourself, like in terms of your day-to-day habits. And I think there's a lot of literature on that as well in terms of optimizing your schedule and your habits and training yourself in that respect, that people are adopting a scientific methodology to that as well. So it can be employed for your own self, but also for your life, for your work life as well. So I think it's really interesting being a scientist. And of course, we want to we also want people to take it to the nth degree where they, go hardcore with, looking at cells under a microscope, finding the structures of proteins, and just mixing things in test tubes. That's super cool too. And I think understanding all of that requires a lot of commitment and taking a path down that road of, okay, I want to be someone who develops vaccines.
Mhm.
And that's really crucial, as we saw with the pandemic. So that could be a great scientific pathway, and obviously requires a lot of training and new knowledge to gain there. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that too.
Well, I think that society would benefit from a general high quality science education. Like a lot of the problems that I have encountered in my daily life when talking to maybe non-researchers or researchers in a completely different field, is misunderstanding or lack of knowledge on certain topics, like how vaccines work. For example, the mRNA vaccine was quite had a tempestuous response from various demographics of the public. And I think if we understood how mRNA works and how protein works and how vaccines work, we might, as a society, have had a better response to the release of that vaccine than we did. So, in those kinds of situations, you can always decide, like, I don't want to participate in something. But if you have the best knowledge, or not the best knowledge, if you have the most information, you can make an informed decision. And I think that that's really what science education and science outreach would help the society or help our society improve, you know?
100%. It's that basic understanding of what those key terms are.
Right.
What's a
Yeah.
protein, what's a gene, and we take that for granted because we've been in the field for so long.
Right.
But if we take some steps backwards and think to the earliest inklings of when we started doing science, that's when those foundations were made.
For
And so,
sure.
yeah, for everybody to have that foundation would be so wonderful. It's sort of almost like the alphabet, like knowing that is a crucial component to understanding how medications work. So people take ibuprofen all the time. How does
Right.
that work?
Right.
How does that impact you? And if you do want to be someone who kind of understands that impact and the side effects, so the drug to drug interactions, like if you take a certain drug, you can't take that. How does that
Mhm.
impact the body? These are
Yeah.
all things that are great to know, so then you can make better informed choices.
Right. I agree. I think the return on investment would always be great if we had better understanding of the basic science concepts. But
Yes.
luckily, we have people like our next speaker, Dr. Nakisha Rutledge, that help connect our society and community and high quality science education. So we're really excited to have Dr. Nakisha Rutledge on our podcast finally. She's an entrepreneurial scientist at Temprian Oncology, where she's developing nanoparticle therapies for the treatment of melanoma. And with that, we're excited for you to listen to our segment. Okay.
Joy.
Yeah. We are so excited today to speak with Dr. Nakisha Rutledge, the entrepreneurial scientist at Temprian Oncology, where she's developing nanoparticle therapies for the treatment of melanoma. Outside of being this amazing industrial scientist, Dr. Rutledge is the founder of Sci in the City, formerly known as Sci in the Chai, and founder of STEMulating Potential, a STEM education support company where she offers tutoring in all things STEM and sells STEM kits. For every kit sold, they donate one to a school in need so that the STEM curriculum has everything they need to reach all students. So we implore you guys, as our listeners and followers, to check this out and purchase a STEM kit so that a school can have one. Welcome, Dr. Rutledge or Nakisha. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very excited to have you on the podcast. Also, to celebrate that you're the Young Scientist Leadership Award recipient.
Congrats.
Yeah. So I hope that you've already celebrated it, but are you excited for this in the upcoming ASIP conference?
I am actually, and I'm excited about the talk that I'm giving because you guys know me. I always like to get creative with my presentations, and so it's going to be a journey of just the different therapies that I've produced over the years, and so it's really nice.
Oh, I love that. Therapies the Rutledge way.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I might steal that, so you can't copyright it.
Go ahead. I give you all credit. You were the inspiration. So let's like backtrack a little bit. When did you start STEM outreach? Because I mean, you got your Scientist Leadership Award due to both your outreach and your scientific accolades, but this is something that isn't super common for scientists to do. So how did this all begin?
So I began back, I want to say like my freshman year of college. I didn't know it was outreach. It was kind of one of those things like, oh, I liked going to the Girl Scouts STEM Expo. And so the Spelman College Chemistry Department used to take us every year. And so I started there and I started having a lot of fun. And then we just started going to different elementary schools. I became president of the Spelman College Chemistry Club and just really made sure that was like a key component that we participated in every year, regardless if it was one of the professors, children's school, or with the Girl Scouts again.
That's amazing. I was also a Girl Scout. I went all the way to Silver Award, never gold. But I remember Girl Scouts being a great way to be exposed to things that I normally wouldn't. Especially because in Venezuela we had a Girl Scout troop there too. So that was kind of cool to like have this American culture component in, a different country. But
Yeah.
that's exciting that that's how you entered like STEM outreach because you were a recipient of it. Like that's pay it forward to the maximum.
Yes.
That's amazing. With the getting started process, we are so curious about that because I know a lot of our listeners are probably thinking, how did they even get their foot in the door? Who did you speak to get this going, and what was the early origin story?
So, um, so I knew I wanted to do something of my own, and I knew I wanted to specifically target kids who came from similar backgrounds that I came from. And I didn't really know how to do the language. And the research faculty in our lab, which you guys probably know, Dave Sullivan, he went through and helped me come with like a list of names. And then my best friend helped me just do keywords. And so at first, Stimulating Potential was supposed to be the name of the organization. But then I needed a new Twitter name when I was getting tagged and stuff, when I would publish papers and speak at conferences. And my name at the time was Quiche Beach. And my friends was like, you need a better name. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be Sign to Shy. And so that name kind of like took off. And then I started getting invited to other cities to do things. And I knew that I didn't want this to be localized only to Chicago. One, because I'm also not native to Chicago. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And I knew for a fact that I was going to go back home at some point to start spreading things. And so I switched everything over to Sign the City. My board of directors is made up of family and friends who believe in what I do, some dope virologists, dope biomedical scientists, and like logistics people and DEI people. And so I just kind of leaned on them, and I did a fundraiser one day for my birthday, and it kind of took off. And I've been doing it ever since, legally as an organization. Before I was doing it paying out of my pocket, and I wasn't registered with the state. Now I am.
Well, I'm glad that you clarified the legality of it because I
Yes.
do think that that might be an important topic to maybe cover in the future because sometimes we don't consider how like these entities do need to be like registered or trademarked or I know LLCs or things like that,
The
especially like with children.
nonprofits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another sort of topic of discussion because we financially we are so inept, I think. I don't think we get the proper training for that stuff.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, especially like with this podcast too, where
Oh,
it's
that's
chaos.
another story. But
You
we're
got
making
that.
it work, which is great.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
You're doing
Yeah, but
It
amazing.
exists.
accolades to you for like it's starting it out of pocket though, because that is not only a financial investment and like you have your life and a family that you also want to care for. So like this just speaks volumes to how much passion you have for this. And It's intoxicating. Honestly, it's very
Thank
contagious. I
you.
love it.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that you knew you were going to go back home, and I'm really curious about this. We can talk about it outside of the podcast if you want, but I do love that, like, bringing it home is, one of your missions. Um, but what prompted you to do the outreach to in the Chicago community instead of waiting until you went home?
So when I was in grad school, my friends and I started an organization called Alliance of Chicago Minority Students. And so we were the e-board. A lot of that was because I don't know if you know, but I was the only Black person they took in my year. And then every year before me, it was like one, two, one. So it wasn't a lot of us, right? And then the year after me, um, I think they increased the numbers slightly. And then one year was like six of us. And it was like, oh my gosh, we were excited, right? And so we made this organization combining all the schools, and we partnered with a couple local schools in the community to do science for a day, scientists for a day, where middle schoolers could come to campus and do science experiments. And so um that was kind of like, okay, I'm doing this for the university. But then I started doing stuff with the park district. And so when I would go with the park district, that wasn't with the university. That was just, you know, someone really close to me had said, hey, I see what you're doing. I like it. We're doing this event. Can you come? And so that's kind of how that jumped off. And so I've been doing things with the park district for the last 3 or 4 years now. And I landed my first school contract last year.
Wow,
That's amazing.
congratulations.
Congrats.
That's
Wow.
awesome. Yeah, no, that those are quite huge leaps and bounds for your association, or your organization that you've put together. Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I'm curious, like, if you faced any challenges along the way. I'm sure like it was hard to set up. But what was one of the biggest challenges, and how did you overcome that?
So one of the largest challenges is like I'm one person, right? So
Hmm.
now people want me to come places and I still
Mhm.
have a day job. And so some of the places where I go are relatively far from, where I work. And so trying to get there in a timely fashion, making sure that I'm teaching and exposing the kids at a level where they understand. So I was at a school once where one of my students told me, we didn't have a teacher all year. They had a sub. So all they did was learn the periodic table. And it wasn't like she could tell me every element on the periodic table. It was just like they talked about the periodic table. And so it was really difficult teaching other concepts because they didn't have that foundation. And so just being able to quickly pivot and make sure like, okay, I am meeting every student where they are while also making it fun for them.
Wow, I can't
That's
believe
that's
it.
really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's amazing. And being able to adjust on the fly like that is certainly a challenge. And yeah, just the periodic table, that's so surprising that they
Yeah.
just hopefully they really got into that periodic table and not all the intricate details.
Listen, chemistry should be a breeze, right?
Right.
That's incredible. So what I went through this teaching philosophy training at
Mhm.
Rutgers, and it was a foreign concept to me, but what you're saying that you're doing and like the way that you're able to meet students where they are is just like active learning at its finest. So I think it's amazing that you were able to come to that on your own without seeking out like that philosophy of scientific teaching and things like that. So that's incredible because I had to learn it through someone else. Like I didn't have the name for like wanting to like do things that help students have deep learning or deep understanding like you're actively doing.
Yeah, it's one of the things that help though is like you hear kids say, when am I ever going to use this? And so now like, okay, let me show you why this is important, which is one of the main missions of Sci in the city, is that I want to teach you how you can turn this into a career, what different careers you have. Like we went to the school basketball game and I had them keep track of like player statistics, right? Because now you know like this is a potential career that you could have.
Yeah.
Um, we do cosmetic science. So it's just making sure like they learn something that matters or is fun to them and they're not just blowing things up or learning like properties of matter or things like that.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's incredible to translate it outside of just everything. If something blows up, that's really cool. Or if you make a rainbow glow in the dark, like
Yeah.
that's fun. But to sort of show them that this matters not just to you, but to millions of other Americans and other boys and girls that have the same interests as you, like that is super fascinating. I love that you were able to bring that to them.
Yeah.
Um, so what was something that surprised you the most about working with the Chicago community on STEM outreach? I mean, you mentioned the periodic table incident, but is there something else that surprised you?
How many of them had never seen a scientist that looked like them?
Mm.
So one of the things I always do as an icebreaker is I have every student tell me or draw a picture. What does a scientist look like to you, right? And then we do like this picture of scientists I find on the internet. You guys have made the cut too, by the way, just so you don't think I'm a creep. And I put them on a slide and I'm like, okay, how many of these people on this slide are scientists? And we all look so different, right? And they're like, oh, they'll choose like two or three obvious what they see on TV, what they see is the norm, right? And they are shocked by like, oh, well, oh, this Latina is one, or this Black girl is one with her big fro, or, you know, it's just very, very shocking to see where I'll say, oh, how many Black women scientists have you ever met? And they all be like, they'll raise their hand. I'm like, oh, what's her name? They're like, you. And it's like, it's like, okay, work smarter, not harder. I get it. I see what you're doing. So
No,
yeah.
that's amazing. And at least they were like, it must be really confidence boosting that they're like, oh, you're a scientist. Like they no longer question it after meeting you. Like not
Mhm.
only are you showing photos of people, but you are there in the flesh, you know?
Mhm.
That's
And I'm intentional about how I show up. You know, in academic settings, we're taught to kind of carry ourselves a certain way. And as you guys know, like I like to bring color and personality when I have to give a talk. And so just making sure they know, like, okay, oh, she has a nose ring, she's a scientist. Oh, she has tattoos, she's a scientist. Like you don't have to fit what this mold is of what a scientist should be. And like I think that's really amazing.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I hope that society is like recognizing that more with these programs.
Mhm.
And hopefully, yeah, from your outreach program, that's changing that outlook. Because yeah, classically it is that. And I don't know how long it takes to shift that image. How many
Yeah.
generations of scientists will it be before that image is shaken and we can actually see scientists for anyone could be a scientist really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes time and it takes these outreach programs and talking about it like we are now. And I'm wondering how you measure the impact of Psi in the Chai. Like, are there some sort of measures that you've been looking into, or some success stories that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so at first I was winging it. And then I realized like in order for people to give me money, I need numbers. And so now I
I
do
love numbers.
yeah, I do a pre-assessment survey. Like, oh, how many science careers can you name? And like I'll have them list them and then I'll calculate how many was on there. Um, have you ever considered to be a scientist? Do you want to go into STEM as a career? And most of the time it's no. A lot of people think they want to just be artists and they don't know the connection of STEM to everything else. And then by the end of the program, all of that changes. Now it's like, oh, I wanted to be an artist. And it's like, dang, now I know I can be like a graphic designer. Now I know I can learn how to code. I know how to do all of these things in comp sci. I like sports. Now I know that there's a place for STEM in sports. A lot of people don't know that. And so I use surveys. I get testimonials from my kids too. Some of
Oh.
them are a little shy, some of them are not. They all think I'm a science teacher, and I always have to remind them, like, I'm not a teacher, but I take the title. And I had one little girl. She still comes to find me. She's not even in the program anymore, but she comes to see me every Monday and Wednesday. Tell me that I was the best teacher she's ever had and that she wished she didn't age out of the program. And so that always warms my heart. It always makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. And even my son is invested. I used to think that doing this was taking away from him, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to after school today. Let's go!" And so he's like a little lab baby, and he's excited every time. So it's been nice.
That's amazing. And thank you for opening up about that sort of shift between who you are as a public servant, as a scientist, but also as a mother. Like that is it, I'm sure it's something that's crossed a lot of mothers who are also in science.
Mhm.
Something it crossed their minds. Like how much are I feel like women, I mean, this may be out of pocket or coming at people sideways, or they might take offense, but I do think that a lot of women who are mothers, or just mothers in general, tend to have two full-time jobs when they like, and it's just it's never like an equal sharing. I don't know. Yeah, so I thank you for opening up about that. That
Yeah,
was
it's very
really
different.
um I guess so. You talked about how you had to have metrics and how you crowdsourced your funding to sort of start Sci in the Shy, who's now Sci in the City.
Mhm.
Um, but at what point did you realize that you needed to establish it as a nonprofit to support to be supported instead of just crowdfunding like Kickstarter? Sorry, the name escaped me for like a second.
So, um, I think with Kickstarter, the way I was taught, and I could be wrong because I'm not a business major, is that the people who kickstart for you end up owning some type of percentage or something like that, right? I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that, but I think that's my understanding. Um, and I wanted people to donate and have an incentive. So I wanted them to have a tax write-off.
Mm,
And from my understanding, it was that you needed to be a nonprofit for people to be able to write it off on their taxes when they make a donation. Additionally, I wanted to make sure that I could cater to the families that I wanted to target. And so, like, as a for-profit business, I would need to charge more. So my tutoring prices are a little bit more for my STEM education company, but I make sure that I work with families so that they can afford the payment plans that we have available. With the outreach program, it's a little different. There's so many programs in Chicago. If your child has to choose between a free program that may just have them playing in a gym all day versus a quality STEM program that may cost, $100, $200 for the summer, you
mhm.
might not get those students that you're trying to target. So what I do is I partner with schools and other organizations, and they pay me per session, and then it's free to the families in that neighborhood. And so that way I'm able to still work with those families.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it's so it's a genius idea to sort of still keep it fiscally responsible so that you are not driving yourself into debt while also catering to the community.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that the community is so supportive as well. It shows that they recognize the importance of this and they're willing to put the dollars to match how they feel about it. So that's really great.
Yeah.
What I'm so curious about the STEM kits. I don't know why, I just love like little kits. It just makes me so happy. But tell us like that kind of the story behind that, how you set it up, like what's involved in the kit. And then now, the money goes, you've set it up so that the kit money goes towards donations to schools. So tell us all about that story of how you set that up.
Yeah, most definitely. So the kids have not launched yet. They'll be launching in April.
Okay,
So
nice. All
Okay,
right. So
exciting.
starting
Stay
in
tuned,
April.
listeners.
And so the purpose was that I see a lot of kids. When kids have birthday parties, I'm the queen of buying a microscope. Your kid is getting some type of kit. A lot of parents complain about it being messy, and I don't think there's a good translation of like the scientific method and the science behind it with the kit. And so with my kit, it'll be the scientific method. It'll still be something fun. It's
Mhm.
still going to be messy because science is messy, right? Is it science
Yeah.
if it's clean, right? And then also a career kind of like pamphlet that'll tell them like, hey, these are some things that you can think about. And then hopefully there's a link where they can follow like us for Science City because they're partner all the time. And
Mhm.
so um, be on the lookout. Our first set is going to be cosmetic science kits because those are the demos that I do the most and they're easier
Yeah.
to launch. I feel like everyone does like the whole like baking soda and volcano stuff. And so
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that I cater to a market that's not overly saturated and
Yeah.
that still piques interest. Of course, like slime is going to be one of them. Kids love slime, but
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They love slime. Like
it is
kids
insane how
especially.
much I do slime. I'm tired of it. So now we have branched over to like edible slime, glow in the dark slime. I can
Edible
Okay, there we go.
slime. I need
do it
this.
That's
So yeah.
amazing. I love the cosmetic kit. I'm so excited. I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna place an order. That
That is
sounds
super
amazing.
cool. That is super,
Thank you.
super cool.
So what advice, since you've spent a lot of time and a lot of like thinking and planning and processing, and then also the hours in the ground doing the outreach, but what advice do you have to give someone looking to start their own STEM outreach initiative?
Mhm. Don't think about what's already out there. STEM is like this hot new wave, STEAM. Like you see everyone trying to find a way to put STEM into something that they're doing. And just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean that they're doing it the way that you will. And so, I know that was one of my reservations, like, dang, there was a organization here and they were literally doing what I wanted to do, but it was like, but they're doing it differently. My niche is that you know what careers you can go into after you do an experiment with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this is a job. I can make six figures doing this and I just had a blast. Absolutely, right? And so you just have to find your niche and don't care what no one says. Like, just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean they're doing it the way that you would, or even making the impact that you could make.
Yeah.
And I think it's important just, finding your lane and taking it over.
Take over your lane. I
True.
love
Love
it.
that.
Oh,
Love the advice.
I know
Um,
the call to
this is
action
advice
though.
I need to apply to my life as
I
well.
know.
Yeah. I know they should have had me on, what was it called? Hillman Talk. You
Yeah.
know,
I honestly like at this point, I'm like, we just need to have you with your own podcast. Like we'll just give over
Yes,
all the
yes,
reins.
I think so. I
You would
really
set
think
my
so.
life straight. I know it.
Yeah. Um, so with a last couple questions about the podcast, and then we'll move on to fun questions because we always want to save time for that.
yeah.
So we want to ask about your future goals of Sign the Tribe. What are some big projects on the horizon?
Yes, my favorite project that's coming up. So on National STEM Day, we will be doing a citywide science fair. So I was talking to my homegirl, my friend. I was going to change it, but no. I was talking to her and she was like, "Oh yeah, my daughter has a science fair project." And I was like, "They do those still?" My son hasn't had one. No one has had one. I'm like, I thought they did away with them. And
Yeah.
so I'm partnering with a couple of people here in the city, and we're going to do a citywide science fair, but not for a grade. We're going to give away prizes.
Ooh.
Um, we're going to give away scholarships if high schoolers participate. So we're working on building that out and launching it. And so we're doing a smaller one at the school that I'm currently contracted with because they wanted to bring back the science fair. And so this is going to be like my pilot study, of course, because I'm a scientist all the
Yeah.
time. This is, this is going to be my pilot study so that I can make sure that I implement the things that I want to here in Chicago, November 8th, for National STEM Day.
Amazing. Wow,
Mm,
that's so incredible.
that's so
That'll be really
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to check
I
back
always
in with you.
like The Simpsons and science fairs. And there's definitely going to be a Lisa Simpson somewhere there.
Yes, exactly, right. You find these kids who are like really good. So I have a kid in my after school program. This kid has signed up for my summer camp, the fall program, spring program, and I just told him like, "Hey, I'm not doing your grade level for March, and he was like, well, where am I supposed to go for after school? And I was like, I don't know
Oh,
what to tell you. But when I say he is like a engineer in the making, every robot that I've had them build, whether it be a solar panel robot, a wind run robot, an electrical robot, no matter what robot it is, he's the first to finish. He
mhm.
adds his own like aesthetic to it. And then he always adds some little like mechanical with stencils. He makes like these mechanical dinosaurs that ride on the robots as well. And I was like, you are going places. I really hope that you do not lose this creativity or this
Yeah.
drive. And people think it's just like a sensory thing for him that he plays with stencils. And it's like, no, this kid is really like building things that work. And so I wish I had it with me, but it's like a little button on it, and like the dinosaur like opens his mouth, the arms move all out of like those little pipe cleaner stencils.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Amazing.
amazing.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah,
He's
I
he's
mean, I
definitely
hope,
going places.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I hope that school, traditional schooling doesn't snuff it out. I do think that that's how
Yeah.
a lot of our creativity gets destroyed.
Exams, grades.
Sorry. Yeah. But it sounds like he really has a passion for it. So hopefully
Mhm.
that'll continue to get ignited, especially with your amazing programming that you keep providing.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit of a last serious question, and it is a little more serious than the
Okay.
rest. So there's been a lot of like rhetoric and policy implementation that is very anti-DEI. So
Mhm.
how does this impact you, your science, and Sci in the City?
So now it gets kind of tricky because one of the ways that I rally funds from companies is I send out sponsorship letters, right? And I talk about this need and this um, lack of presence of representation of people of color in our industry, right? And so I find that I have gotten ignored a little bit more frequently when I reach out to people. Um,
Mhm.
I think that especially in 2020, there was like this big wave of like, oh, we're gonna push all these efforts, especially after like George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And I feel like now the green light has come where it's like, you guys don't have to care anymore. And it's showing up. People don't care anymore, right? Like, so my fundraiser I did last year before these things happened was a hit. I, had everything. And the fundraiser I did this year, I haven't gotten as much.
Mm.
Um, there could be a couple other variables that come into play, like the economy kind of sucks right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it really does come from, this anti-DEI movement that's happening. It's really unfortunate because it's so important to have diversity in these spaces, right? As scientists, we are leading the cause for different therapies and innovations that impact the world. And if you make things or engineer things with only one point of view, then you're not making it equitable for everyone in the world, right? And
Yeah.
so I think about those rare diseases we were having like a side conversation about, right? What if we only cared about the major diseases? Like people
Mhm.
know like breast cancer is a big market. But what about those eye cancers that you don't hear of, right? The company I work for, I had never heard of the eye cancer that we're developing a drug for until I started at this company,
Mhm.
until I met with the patients that need this therapy. And so I just think about what happens when we stop that conversation? What happens when we remove the access to these different resources? We're going to make a world that doesn't include everybody. We're going to make innovations and therapies that don't benefit everyone. We're going to actually slow down progress in medicine, technology, and all things that we need. And so it kind of sucks, but I know I went off on a tangent, but it's more than just like a nonprofit organization, right? We're training the next generation of scientists here at Sci in the City. So it's like for you to say that you want me to not care more about a certain population than one who already has access to these resources, I think it kind of sucks, right? My kids have microscopes. My son goes to a more privileged school. His science lab actually is a science lab, right?
Mhm.
The school I'm in, they're in the gym.
Yeah.
They don't have a science lab. They don't have microscopes. They don't have lab benches, right? And I even have to check my son's privilege from time to time because I've been able to afford him these opportunities. But I think about those kids who don't, right? And so it's like they don't think they can be a scientist. You cut these programs that I went through, like Project Seed or the F-31 program, which pay my salary and stuff for grad school. Now you remove or you add that barrier back where it's like, dang, I can't do this, right? I have to choose between working to help a family or things like that. Or I think about how Project Seed paid me for the summer. I don't know what I would have done if I had to choose between getting a regular job or a research opportunity program where you would have expected me to work for free. The fact that I was able to have that funding that was focused on DEI for me to be able to be paid and do research, I didn't have to choose. And
Mhm.
so I think it's a multi-layered issue, and people are only looking at the surface, and uh their feelings towards certain demographics of people are showing when they talk about being anti-DEI, and it shows their
Yeah.
ignorance as well.
Yes. No, there's a lot of ignorance going around right now. Yeah, everything you said really resonates with myself, and I'm sure also Daisy, having to be women in science and, all the other boxes that can be ticked. It is sort of discouraging because you want to see bigger, better science after you're done, right? I don't want to be the pinnacle of all science. That would be a shame.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think that by excluding these opportunities, we're never going to reach the bigger, better science that I want to see.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now to change the mood.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I think it's important to talk about this because it is something
Yeah.
that's ongoing right now. And we do want to have a podcast episode dedicated to some of the new changes and discussing it with people who are happy to, share openly about what their thoughts are. Um, and
Bring me back.
because,
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
no, we'd love to
We'll sign
have
you
you
up.
because even the indirect cuts to 15%, that's something that we do want to talk about, and it's very serious and it's going to impact research so significantly.
Yeah.
And even when we're talking about like the changing shape of the face of scientists, how's that going to impact all that hard work that's been put in and that generational shift? We were just like on a trajectory of momentum, and now like, it's maybe going to shift like backwards, but like hopefully not, but or make like, a little bit of a stall there. So yeah, we just need to keep the conversations up and hopefully yeah, we'll just
Yeah.
see. We'll just see what happens.
It sucks because it's like the fight and the movement is already slow, right? We're still trying to
Yeah.
get women recognized for their contributions to science without a man's name attached to them. Like it's like
Yeah,
come
even the
on.
Nobel Prizes last year, that's just
Yes.
another example of that.
Yeah.
So, listen, I can talk on that soapbox all day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have you back.
Well, yeah, let's do some fun then. The fun is just like really random stuff.
Yeah.
But the first random question, coffee or tea?
Coffee. I'm drinking tea
Well, I'm
now,
with you too.
but but that's because I didn't make it to the store to get my coffee. And I really need to invest in a coffee machine because, whew, listen, the coffee places is taking all my funds.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, so if
Thousands.
you well, yeah, we'll talk later because I have a very fancy coffee machine I inherited from my sister. I of course did not buy that with my like postdoc money. Um, but it's amazing. I'll tell you all about it after
Okay.
this. But I also am addicted to coffee, so I love seeing a sister out there. Um,
Fine.
so pizza or pasta?
Pasta. I actually, fun fact, I don't like pizza. And when I tell people this, they gasp like that. Which is funny because, in undergrad, that's all they feed you. At
Yeah, no, I had some today.
grad school conferences and things like that, it's always pizza. And it's like, "Ugh, I don't like pizza. I'll eat it, but it's not like how people go crazy over pizza. No, give me pasta.
Oh, noted. So if we treat you to dinner, it will not be at a pizza only spot.
Night in or night out?
Night out. I am a huge advocate of making sure you have a social life. You
Mm.
cannot be all
Yes.
work, no play. Even when applying to grad schools, I got into Stony Brook grad school program in New York. And they took me touring after, you know how like you do the drinking and the eating, and then they take you around the city for a hangout. I said, there is nothing here. I will be miserable. A PhD is a long time to not
Yeah.
have a social life. And so Chicago has the perfect nightlife, which is why I've been here so long.
Mhm.
And daytime life and summer. Like everyone's summertime shies. It's a good time.
Yes.
All
Chicago is
right. Well,
awesome.
now we know Chicago has it all.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, what is your at bat song?
Um, You know what? And my son likes this song too now. Every morning, even on my way to lab, I listen to Jennifer Lopez, Feeling So Good. And it's just like an anthem of like, you can't say nothing to me. I don't care what's in my way. Like I'm having a great day. And I know that song is so old. I have a couple other like new, you know, songs that are probably not appropriate for the podcast that had bad songs, but that one is good. It's funny because I worked with an organization that mentor young girls, and we did an activity. I was like, "What is your feel good song? What's like your song that's like pulls you out of your funk?"
Yeah, that's great. Maybe we'll rename it to that because it is a very like baseball reference. But yeah, no,
Yeah, it
and
is. Not
I
for our international listeners might be confused, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, so whenever a player goes to bat, they usually get to pick a song that sort
Mhm.
of lets the crowd know they're coming up and it hypes them up before they, swing and
Mhm.
for like a home run. So
That
that's
makes
why we
sense.
always
Yeah.
have.
My new one on my list is Amazing by Mary J. Blige.
Okay,
So that's a good one. So you should check it out.
definitely. Okay, I love any song that will inspire me. And I also love uh female artists. I just feel like, I love women supporting women kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Describe yourself in 3 words.
I think I'm hilarious.
Yes, you are.
I'm also kind of quirky. I
Okay.
feel like I catch people off guard with that part. Um, and I'm nurturing.
Mm.
I used to crack a joke and tell people like I'm getting a PhD just to teach kindergartners. And literally, I do teach kindergartners, and they're like my favorite group of kids.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I
Yeah.
would I would definitely not that you need my attestation, but I can affirm that all three are great
Mhm.
descriptions for you.
Thank you. I'm gonna keep that on record too when I try to tell people I'm funny.
There you go. Yeah, it's like I was ripping seams over there. Don't even worry about it. So if you were stranded on a desert island,
Okay.
what's one thing that you would take?
Mm. As a mom, I feel like I'm supposed to say my kids.
We're gonna pretend this is pre-children.
Three children. Oh man. I would have to say my house shoes. I can't walk around barefoot. I know that sounds so strange, but
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
growing up, we had to wear like shoes in the house. And so now it's funny because I cannot walk anywhere without shoes on,
Mhm.
except the beach. So
Yeah,
I
the
that's
beach. Yeah.
shattered. But even then, I still need shoes.
Yeah. I mean, do you want sand in between your toes all the time? Like that doesn't seem like fun.
Want
I'm
those?
also a house shoe person, so it's nice
Yeah.
to hear that other people are.
Me
Yeah.
too.
See,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm all
we're
about that.
it.
I have so
We'll
many
just
pairs of
rename that.
slippers.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. I love slippers. But this was really wonderful. Thank you so much for letting us see,
Nakisha.
like, and our listeners to get to know you better, get to know about Sci in the City, formerly known as Sci in the Shy, and to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing, not only in helping find cures for a rare cancer, but to promote science and STEM outreach to the Chicago community for right now, but it will petition back home very shortly.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I've been watching you guys for a while, and I think I did like a mini interview or something at a conference once, and I still have
Yeah.
my mug. And I was like, they need to bring me back because now I'm not a student anymore. Now I'm a doctor.
No, it was amazing.
Yes.
I'm glad that we were able to have you on. I feel like you are sort of an all-star. So I
Thank
Mhm.
you.
I think that you've brought our podcast up
Yeah,
personally.
you've raised
Thank
the
you.
level of our podcast.
Yeah, so we'll have you back on in the future, I'm sure.
Thank
Yes,
you.
definitely. Thank you, Nakisha. This is amazing, inspiring, and I'm sure our listeners are just, well, hopefully we'll inspire some more outreach around the world.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
taking over,
yes. And
science taking over.
yes, and listen, we travel, so let me
Yes,
Heard it here
international
first.
travel. Let's get that sponsorship.
thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Nakisha Rutledge. That was definitely very inspiring, and we hope you pick up those STEM kits as well. They sound so fun. And we're really excited that there are amazing people out there who are performing science outreach and inspiring the next generation, because that is the future of science and yeah, moving science forward. So the next episode we have for you is a very pertinent one, um, which is actually on the recent NIH changes. There have been a lot of budget changes. It's been concerning a lot of researchers in the US, but also abroad, because this will impact everybody. And we know there's a lot of jargon in the announcements made, words like indirect costs, all of this stuff. And we just wanted to bring in an expert who has a lot of expertise in this area to discuss this. And that is none other than Dr. William Coleman, the Executive Officer of the American Society for Investigative Pathology, or ASIP, ASIP, who is a proud supporter of our podcast. And we're really grateful for ASIP for everything they've given us. And we're very grateful that Dr. Coleman accepted our invitation to speak on this. So stay tuned for that episode. I know that a lot of our listeners out there want to know and want to find out more about what these changes are going to impact, how they're going to impact on society and the funding landscape as well. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, stay curious, and thanks for listening.